working with organic materials. Now, I started this particular canvas by growing flowers from seed back in May. I grew zinnias for my mother, mint marigold from seed, and I kept alive some native wild yarrow from the yard, which was volunteer. We tried to keep track of all the volunteers this year and make sure they were native and treat them well since we didn't have much water. The next step was to dry the flowers, and unlike other projects that I've done in the past, I did not press the flowers because I was looking for maximum texture, which when you go to paint this makes it extremely challenging. Number one, you end up destroying your creation while you're making it, which I find kind of fascinating and speaks to the ephemeral nature of the materials, despite the fact that you're trying to preserve them. But actually, in destroying them and using the acrylic paint, you're reinforcing the adherence of the materials to the canvas. Once again, I started with the Mod Podge to make sure it adhered, which is, I think, a more compatible medium with acrylics. Originally, when I was doing this, I was doing it with Galkyd and then acrylics, and Galkyd's an oil painting medium, and although it's really shiny and fun to work with, it's extremely flammable and toxic and expensive. Mainly expensive is the problem. But it was taking a long time to dry, unfortunately. But the Mod Podge, I allowed the whole surface to dry for about 72 hours because I really piled a lot on this one. You can see that my palette is somewhat holiday oriented. That was completely accidental. I've got this sort of ice blue, various shades of gold, and I don't usually use red, but I do have some red in there, and then I'm starting to layer in the various tones of greens. It was completely unintentional to have sort of a holiday winter palette, but what occurred. I needed to adjust my light, and you can see my colors a little bit better now. Like I said, I'm using the Lumiere acrylic paint series. It's metallic, which, the video doesn't necessarily capture too much here, but you get a general sense. Now, what I'm really trying to do here is rough up my brush as much as possible, get in all the nooks and crannies for maximum coverage. It's really just like when you go in a first layer for an oil painting or any figurative painting, you're putting in a rough shape. I'm going to be going back, carefully and fixing the edges. But because I'm going for maximum texture, I really don't find that, making mistakes or not having everything completely perfect the first time is really an issue, because texture is the goal. So I'm going to check in to see if I really got all the spots, and I definitely am going to be doing an edge after the other paints are dry. That's one thing that I've noticed about these paints, is that you really have to wait for them to dry so you can get maximum coverage of the textural elements, kind of like a primer in a way. But if you try to do it while it's wet, you end up really making muddy colors, and that's not what I'm into. So when this is dry, which I'll wait until tomorrow, then I'll be able to go in and do the edges of the actual canvas, and voila. So it's actually been an entire month since I have worked on this canvas. One thing I wanted to talk about was how, as an artist, I never do anything one time. I never draw the same a line one time. I always layer my work, and in this particular case, there's a couple of reasons for it. Not just because I'm an obsessive artist, but because I saw a lot of spots on the green part where I've painted, and where I can still see the canvas, there are white spots. So I want to sort of destroy that appearance of the canvas and give the illusion that these flowers are existing outside of that surface. In addition, I find it's really important to paint the edges A lot of galleries have standards. Your artwork either needs to be framed or the edges need to be painted. That's sort of like a standard professional kind of thing. And because I do not want to pay for a frame, and because I don't really like frames in general, and this particular piece would not benefit or even fit in a frame, I am painting the edges. And then I'm going to be going back in with the Lumiere acrylic paints and painting the flowers themselves a second/third time in some cases. And the purpose of this really is to make sure that the flowers are going to adhere to the canvas. It's also going to make them more solid. As I was painting them, I actually was sort of destroying some of the flowers to get in between the cracks, but also because I noticed that they weren't necessarily completely hardened by the layers of acrylic paint that I had put there before. So I really want the flowers to be hard and to not have that organic feel anymore. And again, you can see that my brush is almost completely destroyed because, as I said, I am jamming the paint really into the cracks and in between this organic material, so that you're not seeing any canvas or white spots underneath. And it's also, I think, it's going to create more texture, which is basically the goal with this, is texture, movement. And you know, to somebody else it might appear like I'm just randomly putting colors on here, but I'm really trying to create a sense of movement for the viewer's eye. I'm putting different colors in different spots to force the viewer to sort of travel around the artwork in a specific way. It isn't random, it's very planned out, and I'm essentially following like rules of composition in order to make that happen based on how I'm viewing the artwork. And you know, whatever that motion actually is, you know, that's the desired effect I want in order for, you know, the viewer to really experience what I've created. I've definitely encountered criticism where people just think I'm throwing a whole bunch of stuff together and I'm just filling it in and coloring, and that's all I'm doing. One person even thought that I spray painted these, and it's like, no, I actually hand painted them and took my time and was very thoughtful about the different colors I used. And you can't necessarily tell this from the video, but you will be able to tell by the end of the video. In the corner, I put all of the paints that I've already used. That keeps me from using them again and knowing what I've already used, but you can tell that they really are a bunch of different colors. I know some of them appear to be very similar. They're somewhat next to each other on the color wheel, but they are actually all completely different tones and colors. And I'm, again, doing that purposefully to have the similarities next to each other because I want your eye to travel in a specific manner. And you know, these are going to end up being much more shiny and solidified to the canvas with the additional layering of paint. I really enjoyed doing this piece. It's larger than some of the other pieces that I've done. And it's definitely more textured than a lot of the pieces that I've done. It's like way popping off the canvas. So this is really like a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to displaying it at the Sunderland Public Library. It hasn't been seen anywhere, and I think I'm pretty much finished with it, except I might go back one more time on the edges to sort of fill in any metallic paint that might have gone over the green paint that I created. So again, thank you for joining me on this journey of working on this organic assemblage painting, and I really hope that you enjoyed the work and learning a little bit more about my process. Thank you!